Hi, in this video, we're going to talk about just a few other system-defined attributes. So we've already said that Python provides quite a few special system-defined attributes that can be quite useful, and they can be in pretty much any object. So let's look at a few more of them in classes or instances of classes or functions. Let's start with functions, and this is an example that we've actually seen before. That is the name attribute for a function. So if you remember, in this function, we have a list of the string dot is blah methods, and then we go through this list of these methods, and for each of these methods, we actually we call it, and we print out what function we actually call by doing test dot under name. So if we run this and we see that test dot under name is is digit, and then is alpha, and then is space. So it can be very useful for debugging, knowing which function you're running. And this under name attribute, it doesn't just exist for a function, it also exists for a class. So here I define, this is the person class, and the person class also have this under name attribute. So if we print it out, because it's the person class, well, the name is person. Next, let's look at the doc attribute. So as we all know, we should write a doc string for each of the function definition or class definition that we write. So in this case, this function has a dunder in the doc string, in the triple strings, this particular sentence, and we can actually access this sentence using the function name, and then or the function, the object itself, function object dot, and then the doc. So if we run that, and we can see that it's it equals, so that's one equal, and then and then a bunch of a bunch of equals, that is this the content of this doc string. So, and as you can kind of expect, that the same thing goes for, if we have a doc string for a class definition, we would expect that, we can access this, the content of this doc string through the doc, under doc attribute. So if we run that, and there it is, the class that represents the person. And I think I might have mentioned this before, that if you want to look at the documentation for a function or a class or anything, you can use the quick documentation feature in PyCharm. So if you click on that, and it actually now you understand where it gets this sentence from. It's basically, it's just displaying the Thunder doc attribute of this object. And there's another very interesting attribute, could be very useful at times, called Thunder dict, that actually tells you what attributes an object has. So, for example, let's say the person class here again, that if we print out the Thunder dict attribute of the person class itself, okay, remember this is the class itself. So what attribute does the class definition have? Well, here's a class attribute, so this should be in there, right? The max name length, and then these methods. All these methods are part of the class, so they should be part of the class attributes as well. And so if we run this, let's see. So yeah, this is a pretty long string, but it's a dictionary. So right, so yeah, I forgot to say, yeah, well, it's done the dict, so it's a dictionary of all the attributes. So this is the name of the attribute. Some of the ones we recognize is, the Dog system attribute, and this is the key name of the attribute and the value of the attribute, and that is, the Dog, right? Person, a class that represents a person. And here is the class attribute, right? Max name length, that's 100. And then here is a function, thunder init, and another function, thunder string, and then, well, thunder dict itself, and a couple others. Well, what about if we have an instance of the person class and we want to print out the thunder dict of that instance? Well, so here is what we have. So remember an instance attribute. We know what the instance attributes are, right? For a person, it's the first name and the last name. So we would expect us to print out the first name and the last name as the key, and the value is that they hold as, well, the value. So, and we go. This is, again, a dictionary of, the attribute. The name of the attribute is first name, and the value is Ray. And then another attribute, name, last name, and the value is Skywalker. So this can actually be very useful. For example, in the case if we want to serialize a user-defined type to a JSON. Remember, JSON by default, it knows how to serialize kind of the built-in types, right? Like dictionaries and lists, but it wouldn't know how to serialize an instance of a person. But we can very easily instruct it to just serialize the attributes of a person if we put those attributes in the dictionary, which JSON knows how to serialize. And there are many other special attributes. I won't be able to go through every single one of them. So if you want to more complete explanations on these things, you can check out the Python's official documentation on its data model.